Hey everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Real Estate Rundown, the official podcast of the Western Upstate Association of Realtors. I'm joined today by Clay Vassy, our 2026 Chairman of the Board of Directors, and Addie Patterson, our Government Affairs Director. So today we're going to cover lots of topics that are going on with the government and the realtor legislative meetings that were held in D.C. And so, Clay, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks for the hockey puck. So that's right. We went to Washington, D.C. We had a great time in D.C. We got to see a lot of folks, but joining us was between 8,000 and 10,000 other realtors across the country, as well as leaders within our association. It was a fantastic time. We had a blast. We got to see some folks we haven't seen in a while. Got to talk to a lot of people we haven't spoken to in a while. But there was a lot of great points that came out of this. So I'm going to ask you both some questions because we're coming from different points of view on this. So Josh, you being CEO, Addie, you being Government Affairs, or Director of Government Affairs for Western Upstate. This was kind of a new role for both of you to step into. Give me one quick highlight you took away from that event.
I think just the networking, really. I mean, I got to meet so many government affairs directors from different associations from across the country. We got to brainstorm and network and talk about different ways that we educate our members, that we stay updated on local government issues. And so it was really great to hear other people's point of views.
Great. Josh?
Yeah, so I think the networking is definitely a big component of it. But the part of the networking that I learned in this role this year is that we are not isolated in the events and the topics and the discussions and the issues that we face with our government. So not only do we face issues with local, but we have state issues and national issues that we're all trying to tackle. And everybody right now is dealing with a lot of the same similar issues. So it's nice to get together with like-minded individuals and be able to help find ways to communicate and to tackle these problems together.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a lot of problems on the East Coast that's not made it to the West Coast yet, problems up on the north end of the country that haven't made it down to the South. But overall, we stand together when it comes to things such as writing bills or having the opportunity to communicate through government relationships and advocacy. So Addie, if you would, just for a minute, give us a little bit of information about advocacy and what our role is. I would say local, state, and then national.
Well, I think there's a few components. One is education. Advocacy, the first part is educating the members and letting the members educate the government affairs director on issues affecting their industry, their business. And then, of course, the next component is making sure that that information is presented to decision makers, to policymakers at the state, local, and federal levels so that we have a seat at the table when decisions are being made to make sure that those decisions are positive for the real estate industry or positive for home ownership.
That's right. So that seat at the table is extremely important. But what a lot of people forget is the Realtor Association, especially here in the South, we're the largest trade industry in the country. Amongst all other unions, amongst all other trades, the Realtor Association is the number one in size in the South. That gives us a lot of opportunity to speak. And we use funds from RPAC to be able to help us generate information and educate the agents. We also use the relationships that we gather with folks like you, Addie, and like you, Josh, to help us know exactly what it is we need. We don't get a lot of issues back from our agents, which I wish we got more conversation with the membership or the body that we work with. But the things that we see, we attack, even as something as simple as the elections. And so we've just ran through primary elections. We've got some things we're going to talk about with that in a few minutes. But I believe to kind of highlight what our conversation is going to be today, we're going to talk about 21st Century Road to Housing Act, which is phenomenal. It was passed while we were in town. We're going to talk a few minutes about capital gains and what we're hopeful for and what we hope we see for that in the near future. And then, Addie, you're going to give us a little bit of results and a report from the elections, which is going to be fun. So we'll dive right into those if you guys are ready. First and foremost, the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. Addie, what did you draw from this? What do you see from this as a benefit to our members?
Mm-hmm. And before we get into the policy, I just want to say NAR worked so hard on making sure in our realtor fashion that this was extremely bipartisan, overwhelmingly bipartisan, which is how they attack issues, is working with Democrats and Republicans. And so this bill, it's been months in the making. First off, we're wanting to eliminate burdensome regulations to building homes and those burdensome regulations to actually purchasing a home. And so that is what this bill really attacks. And it passed the Senate while we were in town. The House then, of course, passed the Senate version, and there was some, back and forth a little bit to make sure that the language was identical. And it made it to the president's desk. And so there's kind of three things that could happen. He could sign it, he could veto it, or if he doesn't do anything, it will become law in 10 days. And that was sent to him on Monday. So we're hopeful that this becomes law through one of those channels, because even with a presidential veto, this bill was so bipartisan that, I think the belief is that it would be a veto override from Congress. And so we're going to see how this plays out over the next few days. But we're very hopeful that this is really landmark federal housing legislation that's going to impact our industry, our agents right here at home.
So let me interrupt you. There was one particular politician that really grabbed this and ran with it and really helped organize this. Give us some information. Tell us what our relationship looks like, and tell us why this all feels like that one politician really did a great job for the Realtor Association.
Well, we should all be very, very proud of Senator Jim Scott, our junior senator here in South Carolina. He's the chairman of the banking committee. So that's banking, housing, and urban affairs. And so he really took this head on, for months, and did, committee hearings, markups, and things to get this ready for a House or a Senate floor vote, and then a House floor vote, of course. And so he deserves a whole lot of credit. And, I believe his personal background has some real estate in it. And so he obviously understands our issues and our industry very, very well.
Well, I'll tell you, it was very interesting. We did get to sit down with Lindsey Graham, which was really, really great. As we were talking about this bill and was very appreciative to Lindsey about this, he looked around and said, so what did Tim say about it? Is this good? Are we good? And he was really excited with his relationship with Tim Scott, but also that something that Tim had worked so hard on had been approved. We see that as a win, but if you haven't had the chance to look that up, we'll try to add that so you can click on it below and see kind of some of the highlights of that. But it really is going to help us in our market, specifically in our Oconee County market, Anderson, Pickens, and the Upstate. There's lots of ways that this could really do good things for us in our market. So make sure you click on that link and read through that and see exactly what it is we're waiting on here. So Josh, if I'm understanding correctly, there's a few things that could happen here. One is the president says yes, and he signs off on it. The other is president says no, but what happens if nothing happens?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting situation that we have here, because the president had come out and said before this had been passed on the Senate and the House floor that until another piece of legislation passed that he's pushing for, that he's not going to sign another bill into law or another piece of legislation into law. And so that's what we're kind of looking at right now is, unfortunately, this bill that is so incredibly bipartisan, just overwhelmingly bipartisan, is right now it's hung up on his desk because he says, I'm not going to sign it. So we have, as Addie said, we have three different potential outcomes here. We have one that he will sign it, and that's a yes. It's in law. We have the other option that says, no, I'm going to veto it, which is going to set it for a really interesting dynamic, because you have so many people that are so incredibly pro-Trump.
Yep.
So many people that are completely anti-Trump, that we're going to really have to see then, if that happens, what kind of really bipartisan kind of working relationship are we going to see with that? So if he does veto it, that's where it would go. The third outcome, which may be the most likely outcome, is that it just sits on his desk for 10 days. And if it sits on his desk for 10 days, it automatically goes into law. So if he signs it, it goes into law. He doesn't sign it or veto it within 10 days, it goes into law. And so hopefully between one of those two scenarios, we won't grab the popcorn buckets and see what happens if he vetoes it. But regardless, we do feel really good because it is such a strong bipartisan effort to do this. And with that bipartisan effort, the Realtor party color is purple. And, you going back to elementary school, you take your color, well, you got your red and your blue, you mix them together and it's purple. And so just to be very clear here is that, the Realtor party doesn't support a single party. We support issues and candidates that help benefit the housing industry. And that's what we're seeing here with this bill being so incredibly nonpartisan. It's completely a purple bill.
It is.
It is.
It is. Everybody seems to agree with it and agree quickly with it once it was complete. So it's a great progression. Now, we've got some ties politically with local government. We've got some ties politically with state government, and we've got ties politically nationally. And a lot of those opportunities come through funds with RPAC, right? It comes through events and activities of RPAC. I think, Addie, do me a favor, just to make sure everybody understands. Give me a quick definition of advocacy, and then what RPAC does with that advocacy, or with those funds to assist in advocacy.
Sure. Advocacy here at Western Upstate is, your voice, your seat at the table with your local government and your decision makers. RPAC is a tool that we use, obviously, to help with those efforts. And so it's a way for members to participate, to chip in, to be a part of this political action committee, this RPAC, that we can use to have a member-driven process to ensure we have candidates and elected officials who really truly understand our issues, the issues of affordability, the issues of buying your first home, of setting up wealth for your family. And so that's what we really want to use the RPAC for.
So a couple of other projects we're working on, and we'll speak briefly about those, but RPAC funds are helping in that, especially with folks that are on the same agenda as we are. One would be capital gains. Right? Capital gains tax is a huge conversation right now. Josh, what do you have? What do you know?
Yeah.
What are we hearing about possible changes in capital gains? Don't get too excited. We're not making promises, but what are you hearing?
Yeah. So currently the capital gains has not been updated since 1997. And a lot has happened since 1997.
Right.
I mean, we're almost 30 years down the road since that happened. And so, of course, even over the last 6 years, home prices have just skyrocketed. And so right now, the capital gain sits at $250,000 for single, $500,000 for married individuals. And to keep from getting hit by that capital gains tax, we're seeing a lot of people just hunker down, stay in their homes. They don't want to sell. A lot of, we think of like a lot of boomers, for example, who may want to downsize, and they're not going to downsize because of this. So there's 2 bills that are out right now that are looking to double that, 500 for singles and 1 million for married. That would be a humongous win. Talking to some of the legislators, in DC, it's not got a lot of traction right now. So we don't want to get everybody's hopes up that this is going to happen, but it's something that NAR is really, really working on. It's something that we're going to continue to work on anytime that we go to those, because it's definitely needed just to bring those values up more in line with what we should be. I still think that's probably low, but it's more commensurate to where it should be as opposed to where it is now.
So if someone bought a home, and I'm just throwing random numbers, but someone bought a home for $600,000, $700,000, and they're outside of their capital gains 2-year window, and they sell that home, there's some concern with what they'd have to pay. Mm-hmm. And the public's not knowledgeable about what that looks like. And so there's not a lot of conversation about it, which also means it doesn't get a lot of push into the politics. So you can't really complain about something you don't know about. And it's our job as real estate agents and as realtors and as a body at Western Upstate to be able to dive in and have those answers and be able to talk about those things. Very few agents take a listing, will do a net sheet, and then list in capital gains in the net sheet now. Right? It's a concern, especially in markets that have been so strong as ours over the past 5 years. You look at 3 years ago, we nearly put a 30% increase on the homes that we were listing, and they were selling for that. And so there's a lot of money being made, but then a lot of money that you were making that was going back to the government. Well, you're exactly right. The boomers aren't wanting to sell because they can't find something that matches their needs and the price point where they need to be. And then they really don't understand what it's going to cost them to sell. And so if they bought that house several 20, 30 years ago, and they make more than the $250,000 or $500,000 on that home, whatever's past that, they've got to pay taxes on. And so they choose not to sell instead of sell, which is displacing our opportunity for having more properties to sell also. So it's holding us back. And so that's exactly where we're at on this. So these RPAC funds, the things we put together, the events that we put together, those are opportunities for us to stand in front of the right people and hopefully have the right people stand in front of us, that we can educate them, they can educate us, and we can assist them into whatever the role is that they're trying to be elected for. Right? Am I right?
That's right. I mean, that's the importance of the national, the Washington meetings that we have. And I do want to encourage everyone to make your voice heard. Come join us on those meetings. Next year, it's going to be late May. Join us on that. Come to the Hill. Come sit with us. We have a seat at the table. That's something that a lot of organizations don't have. And, the more people we have, the bigger numbers that we have, the more of an impact we have. If we wouldn't have gone and met with Lindsey Graham and told him that about capital gains, he wouldn't have ever been like, oh, okay, that was actually a good idea. It would have gone under the radar. So we do have a voice at the table, and that's very important.
And I will say it's important for elected officials to hear from people in the industry, from realtors. You know, there's obviously Josh as CEO and myself as government affairs director. You know, we have, you know, we are fighting on behalf of the members, but also they want to hear from you. So if you can come to DC next year and have a seat at the table, come into these rooms and have these meetings, it's really important to not hear from you.
So to bring that even to a more local level, at Western Upstate, we have 5 different committees that we're looking for members for right now.
That's right.
We have opportunity to have that seat at the table within our local MLS and local realtor association. We need people to come in and fill those seats so that we can get opinions and get ideas from all different parts of our market, so that when we do have the ability to meet with these folks, we then know what truly the body of realtors in our market need. And so we're going to say, come sign up, come register. But today at lunch, we had 2 agents go to lunch with us, and they both said they would love to be part of a committee. So if you don't know, that's your fault, not ours, because it's posted everywhere. We put it all over. All right, so let's talk just for a few minutes kind of on an election report here. Addie, what do you have statewide? What do you have for statewide for the election report?
Sure. So we just finished the primary season in June. And so there were a few races, you know, kind of statewide races with RPAC recommended candidates. And so Lindsey Graham, who we just spoke about, you know, there were a few other folks on the ballot with him in the Republican primary, but he was the RPAC supported candidate or RPAC recommended candidate. And so he will be moving on to the general election against a Democrat challenger in November. We also have our federal member, the House of Representatives, Sherry Biggs. So she is also an RPAC recommended candidate for the general election against a Democrat in November as well. This was an interesting race. So in the Republican primary for Attorney General, RPAC recommended Stephen Goldfinch, who is a current state senator here in South Carolina. He had 2 other opponents and ended up in a runoff against Solicitor David Stumbo in the runoff election. And Stephen Goldfinch was ultimately defeated in the runoff, but, you know, we definitely had our RPAC recommendation behind him. And so those were kind of our statewide races that we were watching.
Okay. So do me a favor. You said RPAC recommended. There's a vetting process for this.
Oh, of course. Okay. Yeah, this all member driven.
So when we say RPAC recommended, we're not saying that we're pushing them as somebody you must vote for, but it's just saying that they support some common interest in the real estate industry and serving the public and their real estate needs.
Yes, this is a member-driven process to make sure that, you know, we get in touch with Republicans, Democrats, everybody that's willing to put their name on a ballot to see how they feel about personal property rights, home ownership, and if their views, you know, kind of align with ours and our industry needs. So this is really our recommendation of their views align with our views. And so, you know, we're hopeful that they would be, you know, a willing partner in their, you know, official capacity once elected or if elected, that we can have open dialogue and open conversation with that individual to make sure our voice is heard.
So that was statewide. Being statewide is great, but let's go into more of our House election.
Sure. So, you know, I've got kind of a list here because we had a big primary season here for our state House elections. And so we had RPAC recommended candidates, you know, all throughout the Western Upstate. And so, you know, those notably are in House District 1, Bill Whitmire, in House District, who had a primary, House District 2, Adam Duncan. In House District 6, we had Kyle White as our RPAC recommended candidate, and he ultimately lost in that primary. We had District 8, which is our RPAC recommended candidate, Don Chapman, who ended up in a runoff and was victorious in that runoff. House District 9 for Blake Sanders, and then a fellow realtor, Thomas Beach, for House District 10, and finally Craig Gagnon in House District 11.
That's great. So you know a lot of those names from just being part of your local communities, but we really do get involved with those folks. So when you look at Don Chapman, you look at Adam Duncan, you look at some of these names that you just kind of dropped on us, they're really involved and they want to know what they can do to help us. And I can't tell you the number of times I've been to dinner and one of them walk up to me and say, okay, what do y'all need from us now? What can I do for your group? What can I do for the realtors? And I hear that from them when I see them. And they're serious. They want to help. They really want to come out and help us. They show up for events that we host for them and in their benefit. So it's always great to see success from some of those conversations.
I think too, just as a side note, Addie and I were talking with one of our state house representatives that you just mentioned a minute ago, and he came to us and was talking to us specifically about a couple of bills that were being, up on the state floor. And he legitimately had a question on where we stood on that and why we stood on it, because he was kind of on the fence about these bills. And he wanted to know, okay, what is your side on it? Why should I actually vote for that particular bill? And of course, we're not lobbying or anything like that on our end, but if they ask us a question, we're willing to tell them. And that's the kind of relationships we like to build, because we're able to actually tell why we are going for these particular bills that are in Congress or the statewide. And so those kind of relationships are very beneficial, because they know that they can pick up the phone and call us. They know they can drop by and see us and say hey to us and send us an email, because we are willing to have that discussion with them.
It's very true. Very true.
And locally, in Anderson, Pickens, and Oconee, there are some county council races. In Pickens and Oconee, there are 2 seats in our region that are going to be on the ballot in November. And I will just point out in Anderson, it's very interesting that all of the seats are up for re-election every 2 years, which you don't see that often.
So you're saying everyone on county council has to be revoted every how often? 2 years. And so no matter what they're working on, typically if it doesn't get completed in 2 years, it probably has to start over.
Yeah. So we're going to have some new faces on Anderson County Council. There's a few that don't have a challenger in November. And so the primary, kind of dictated who was going to be there in January.
Wait, I'm sorry. This is blowing my mind. I want to make sure, what other counties that you're aware of do this?
Not in our region, because Pickens and Oconee, like I mentioned, just in our region, we've got 2 in each, but it's not often that you.
Anderson, do you hear how crazy this is? This is crazy.
You could literally wind up with a completely different county council.
If there was a challenger amongst every one of those seats, they could replace the entire panel within one vote. And this could be the end of a term and could open up a whole nother term for 2 years of folks that don't have any idea of what's been done other than just what they've heard. So that's crazy.
We'll have a lot more to report back on Anderson, Pickens, and Oconee.
This is going to be fun.
This year. It'll be interesting. There'll be some new faces, some new relationships to build, like what we were just talking about with bringing certain bills to their attention, things, we're obviously not going to agree or disagree on, this or that, but, the relationship building is key for these new faces, for the incumbents and the folks that already have been there. So it'll be an exciting time.
That's good. That's good stuff. Well, what's one thing, if you could have one takeaway from all of the information you're throwing at us, what's one thing you could tell us that we need to know as realtors and servants of the public? What's something we should know or something we should be doing?
That elected officials want to hear from you. I think that maybe if you haven't been in the government affairs space or anything, it might seem a little daunting, a little intimidating, or if you haven't gone to a trip to DC or Columbia, but they want to hear from you. Pick up your phone, give them a call. They have on all of their websites, there's a way to email these folks, to message them, to call them, and just introduce yourself. I'm a realtor with, this brokerage or this agency, and this is what we're experiencing here in the market. This is information that I want you to have for your decision making. They want to hear from you. You are their constituent, or, their person that they're buying for your vote.
Sure.
And so that relationship, not just the relationship building from us with them, but with our members, is really key.
So we've got a new position that's opened up recently, that we've placed a realtor in line with some of our government officials so that they would have a consultant between the realtors and whatever their party may be. Locally, we have Rhea, who works with Sherry Biggs, and who is someone working with Tim Scott right now?
That individual is in Charleston.
Charleston?
But yes, they have,
Okay.
And Lindsey Graham, we've got Lorraine Harding.
Lorraine Harding is working with Lindsey, correct?
The federal political coordinator for Lindsey Graham. It's great to have her here, and, he's an upstate local as well.
So how did those folks get into those positions to be able to service the Realtor Association and be involved?
So they volunteered. I mean, it's that simple. They volunteered. They got involved in their with the state association. They got involved locally. they know these individuals. They know how to get in touch with these individuals. And there's an application process that's in place. So yeah, so I mean, so we've got our federal political coordinators, but interestingly enough, now we've got state political coordinators, and that's the brand new one from last year. So the state is still looking for state political coordinators to help with that, to help have those individual relationships with those representatives that we have.
It's extremely beneficial.
Extraordinarily important. So, I mean, like, I feel like we keep beating the drum here, and I just want to we'll keep beating it. Get involved. I mean, it's just that simple.
Yep.
Get involved. You know your representatives. We have a personal relationship. I guarantee you, every single representative that we have, some realtor knows them.
Oh yeah. And they know some realtor also.
Absolutely. They bought a house before. Yeah, typically. So get involved, because we need your voice. We need your voice on the state level, and locally, we need your voice too.
Yeah.
So it's very important. We have a government affairs team. We have an RPAC committee. We need your voice. We need you to be involved with us so that we can reach out to these elected officials anytime we have a concern or something's coming up that we need to bring their attention to.
That's good. Yep, that's true. Very true. So we've got the Road to Housing Act we've talked about. We've talked about capital gains a little. We've got the election report that we've spoken about. We talked about the Washington trip. Let's do a couple of seconds and talk about just our association. Let's dig in. I'm going to hammer you guys with questions, and I want you to give me quick, short answers on some of the questions I'm going to throw your way. All right. And this one's a very, very, very difficult question for you, Josh. Very difficult, because I said short answer.
Yep.
What's new?
A lot.
Good answer. No. So give us some tips and tricks, some things that we've got that we've rolled out recently, and don't tell about the new stuff that's coming up.
No new stuff coming up. We got stuff, but I can't talk about that. Short answers. I want to bring your attention to RE Technology. You should have an email from them. Brand new member benefit. We're talking saving you a couple $100 a year on this, and we're not charging you anything for it. So it's a great member benefit, and it's exactly what the name says, RE, Real Estate Technology. It's everything that you could want, from webinars and short videos, daily emails, up to a weekly email, and then some things that are coming up, monthly, that you have, things that will help with your Google placement, AI placement with real estate, and those kinds of things. So it's stuff that you've asked for. We sent out surveys. You've asked for it. You have no excuse now. So it's there for you.
It's great.
So so that's the biggest, the newest, latest, greatest thing that we've released. But one more thing here is I want to mention Artie. So Artie, but you've seen it on Matrix. You've seen it on our website. You've maybe called us on the weekends or after hours, and you've gotten to talk to Artie.
To be clear, Artie is the little owl at the bottom corner of your MLS screen.
Yes. And so I think a lot of people don't realize, other than, hey, this thing's in the way, kind of a thing. So what Artie is this is not a Chat GPT or a Google Gemini or a Claude, but it is a chatbot, an AI chatbot. And the difference is that the information that you can glean from it is information that we feed into it. So it's not going to go out and look at something that's happening in California and giving you an answer based off of that. It's going to give you specific answers based off of the information that we have and we feed it. So you want to know about signed ordinances in Anderson County? Ask it about signed ordinances in Anderson County. You want to know what form to use for compensation? Ask it, what form do I use for compensation? You want to ask it a question about code of ethics? Ask it a question about code of ethics. You want to know how to get your super key? Ask it. It'll tell you.
So what happens if I ask a question it doesn't have an answer to?
So, and that happens. I mean, let's just be fair. It happens because it's only as good as the information that we provide it. And we can only provide it the information that we think that Artie needs. So what happens is that every week we get reports. We get reports based off of what you utilize on the chatbot. We get reports based off of when you call in and talk to Artie, and we get a success score. Hey, Artie answered this answer correctly, but Artie did not either know this answer correctly, or you might want to review this because we're not sure. And so we're able to look at those questions. And if there is an answer that Artie didn't know or was quite, uncertain about, we're able to feed it the information. So Artie is always growing. It's always learning. So you may not have the answer, today from Artie. Go back and ask it another week later, and Artie will probably give you that answer because we do feed it.
Quick demonstration on Artie. I was with you whenever they presented to us. Quick demonstration was the gentleman asked how many chickens were permitted in that neighborhood, and Artie knew. So if you have particular questions or particular data that you think everyone should know, get in touch with Josh, get in touch with our staff, send that information in, and Josh will proof it and then probably submit it and put it into Artie. That way, when other agents are asking those questions. A great point for that is going to be HOA dues and HOA fees. So if you've got a list that you'd like to have inputted into the MLS, send that in. That way, when someone asks that question, it can be pulled up.
Yeah,
So
because that information is terribly difficult to come by. What were these HOA fees? It'd be something that we'd love to have, or HOA. Yeah, that information that your clients would love to have. It's incredibly hard to pull from. If you have it, send it to us so that we can make sure that it gets uploaded. So that if somebody does ask a question, member of the public or an agent, then we have the answers for them.
that's right. Very good. Very good. So, Addie, we've opened opportunities for committees. We've not had committees in several years, large numbers of committees, but we're into about 4 or 5 committees. We have a government affairs committee that we're working on. We have an RPAC committee, and I think you're involved with both of those. What are you looking for? What are we hoping to do with those 2 committees?
Sure. I'll start with RPAC since we discussed the election results. We're looking for individuals that are great at, gathering our members together, fundraising for this cause. It's really our insurance policy on the business. And so we're looking for folks that are really engaged with what members might like to do to fundraise, to gather together, to talk about, the issues before us. The Government Affairs Committee is a group of just really dialed in individuals that know some elected officials around our region. They help with our candidate screening process during election, like we just had in the primary election season, to make sure that it is a member-driven process for the RPAC recommendation. And so these government affairs individuals, we speak about certain ordinances before our counties and, how should we respond? How should we educate our members on those? And so they're really kind of the guiding light of how we deal with issues that come for us.
Okay, very good. What are some issues? Let's just throw this out there. One quick question, one quick answer. What's our largest issue we're dealing with in our market right now that you see, Addie?
Moratoriums.
Moratoriums. All right. So Oconee County has a moratorium. Anderson?
Pickens County has a partial.
Pickens has a partial.
I mean, a corridor that was extended.
Okay. So if you don't know what moratoriums are, don't worry. All you got to do is call and ask. I bet if you ask Artie's going to tell you what moratorium is. So moratorium is a huge problem right now in our market because it seems as though there's a lot of folks moving to our market. And as we are in the #1 state for transient adults, Oconee County seems like it's right there at the top, right? And Anderson even more than Oconee County. So there are a lot of folks moving in our area. I was asked the other day, when those folks move here, where do they work? What do they do? And it's a lot of people moving for jobs in Greenville, moving for jobs in maybe Greenwood or here, but they've got to have somewhere to live. And we're back to affordable housing, and we're back to all the issues we have. And if we aren't building in those areas, and we can't build in those counties, and we can't control housing and affordable housing, then they've got nowhere to go. And so it's really causing a big problem. That fully builds to inflation.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting how it's gotten, the moratoriums have really impacted our communities. And now that everyone wants a moratorium, there's really nowhere to build. So, all right, Josh, #1 problem for you. What do you see?
So obviously, legislatively, we're talking about moratoriums, but you also got to look at the other side of things with impact fees. Impact fees are a real deal. A few years ago, probably more than a few years ago now, maybe about 5 years ago, Anderson County District 1, the school district wanted to impose an impact fee. And we're seeing them in Easley's got a big impact fees right now too, but just to talk about a win for us, we don't like to talk about our wins a lot of times. And a lot of wins we can't talk about because it never makes it there. So that's another kind of key component of this. But the big win that we have, and we had a really big grassroots moment with realtors, was with this Anderson County District 1 impact fee that was being pushed by, again, the school district. And what happened is that we mobilized our members. This is, a lot of you know Michael Day. Happy retirement, Michael. We'll miss you. But this is where Michael really showed the need for a big grassroots effort from our members. And thankfully, we all came together. We spoke at meetings. We didn't yell at meetings. That doesn't help. But we spoke at meetings, and we talked about the benefit of not having these impact fees, because where does that cost go to? And the cost of impact fees goes to the individuals buying the house, and not to the builders, as it'd be glad to believe. So so that's a big thing that we've had to fight with.
And that fight was well won. right? It was well won. We did a great job. And the fight's never to end the opportunity. The fight's always to find a better way. And being the largest trade organization in the Southeast, we can do that with just our sheer size. So I love the fact that that was a win. I love that there's a lot of things that we can't talk about that we won on, but we don't lose a lot. And when we come together, we win a whole lot. I must say, I think our biggest problem within our association truly is agents trying to find a way to explain their value.
Yeah.
And we've been challenged so harshly for the past 5 years that finally, when we went to DC this year, we got to talk about not just our values and the legalities of what it takes to be a real estate agent or a realtor, but we got to talk about what the public needs again. So we're back to serving the public instead of just trying to keep our careers moving in the right direction. But I believe that agents, that realtors are having a very, very hard time explaining their value. And it's because they don't get involved the way that we need them to. We need them to get involved just in something as simple as reading your weekly report, right? And understanding that there's a value to the association and there's a value to the fees and dues you pay. Plus, there's a value to the education that you can get from these activities. We don't go to DC and step away from our families so that we can come back and keep that knowledge to us. We go so that we can come back and share that knowledge and push that knowledge out to other agents. That helps increase your value. So when you're talking compensation and when you're talking how do you get paid and how do we pay another agent, and all this falls in line with that. All of this falls in line. And the more you know, the more value you have. And we're talking much larger here today on the sense of value with not just political, but private property rights and how to get involved and how to stay involved and how to make sure that we move bills and policies that help grow the wealth of our clients and the wealth of our industry and the wealth of our members. All of this is very important when we're defining what our worth is in this industry. And so I think our biggest problem now as an agent, as a CEO, and as a director of governmental affairs, truly lays all out into this giant knot that we don't need to untangle because everything plays off of each other.
Yes.
And truly it comes down to, as you said a couple of times, volunteering, right? You said it a couple of times, education, right? And then creating self-worth. So we need to get to that point quickly. And the best way to do that is lean on the services that's offered by the associations you're part of. In closing, is there anything you feel like you need to say to the agents? Is there anything you want to say exciting or maybe give them a tidbit on coming soon?
Yeah, not coming soon itself, but yes, no, as beating the drum again, get involved because there's so much. Clay, you just hit it on it a second ago. Read the weekly. If you're listening to this and you have not read the weekly, read the weekly. There's so much you're missing. So much you're missing. There's a lot of information in that weekly update. We don't do it just for fun. We don't have to do it. We do it because we think that you need that information that we're giving to you. And we're going to be the source of that information. A lot of times now we're relying on ChatGPT and the other AI services to give us the information. And that information, listen, is not always reliable.
Get out.
It's not. Believe it or not, it's not. What I can guarantee is that if I send you something, it's reliable because it's been vetted. We've vetted it, NAR's vetted it, SCR's vetted it, it's vetted. It is the right information. And it's information that's going to help you. We've released all kinds of tools and services over the last year and a half. We've released so much that could benefit you on your business. And if you don't know half of it, you're missing out.
Yeah.
So read what we send to you. Don't delete the emails. Don't skim over the weekly. Don't just go, oh, that's just another email that's in my inbox.
Yeah.
It is another email in your inbox, but it's an important email in your inbox.
Yes, it is. It is. And you do a great job with the video highlighting what is all inside of that weekly. Yeah. So great job there. Addie, what do you think?
I would say this is a team approach. You are a realtor out in these communities every day. If you hear of something coming down the pipeline in your local government, in a town or city that you live in a county that you live in, let me know. I may have heard of it, or you may be the one bringing it to me, but that's important information. If you go of a different policy that might be that people are considering, definitely use this as a team approach. Do not be afraid to give us a call, email us to let us know what you're hearing in your community. It's really helpful.
Well, I've got to say, we are the tightest run association in the state. We have a very few number of employees, but we offer more than anyone else offers. It's amazing how at the cost being, from my understanding, Josh, tell me if I'm wrong, our monthly cost for our association MLS dues is second lowest in the state.
The MLS is actually, the association is actually the lowest.
The lowest in the state.
Lowest.
Okay.
Second lowest on the MLS.
Second lowest.
Yeah.
So 1.5. No.
Yeah.
But with that said, there's a lot that we offer and more tools. And we have 2 or 3 tools now that we're the first in the country to offer.
Yes.
So we really have something great for all of our members. We really have something great for anyone that cares to dive into any part of this business, be it listing side, buyer side, leadership side, political side, investment side, ... We could go on and on and on. But if you have your license and you are a realtor and you're part of a realtor association, you have access to all those things. If you're a member of Western Upstate and a member of our MLS, you have access to all those tools. And it just gets better and better. It really does. We've got lots of great things coming. We've got lots of great contacts. We need lots of help. We need lots of volunteers. So you've got the information. If you don't, we're going to try to find a way to put some information below so that you can click and get that information. But feel free to call, talk to any of us, and we'll get you connected. Anything from you, Josh?
Nope. Just
all right.
Yeah, definitely reach out to us.
Reach out.
We're here for you. I mean, that's we're here for you. So yeah, reach out to us if you need us. But thank you, Clay.
Yep.
For helping moderate this. Addie, thank you for your insights on government. We really appreciate it. We hope you enjoy this. We're going to keep doing this. It may not be, probably won't be government every time. We're going to try to bring a lot of new information to you in different ways. And this is one of the ways that we're going to do it. So thanks for joining us today. And we'll see you again, hopefully in the next month.